Well, after a day of having no internet yesterday and getting extremely stressed by it, I'm now back online. I don't do tech. I don't like tech. Tech doesn't work. I don't understand why it doesn't work, and therefore it should die. All tech should die because I don't understand it. It's wizardry and witchcraft and shouldn't exist. Anyway, right. I said I'd explain why the questions. And I think no one's in dispute that estrogen plays a massive role in obviously gyno and in elevated prolactin. But there is definitely something going on with the introduction of nandrolones, not only to prolactin levels, but also to estrogen levels. There is mounting anecdotal evidence that when people have a nandrolone to a base of test, for argument's sake, they normally run 500 milligrams of test, and to control that, they use X amount of anti-estrogen. When they add the nandrolone, DECA or tren, they need to increase estrogen management. Now, I know DECA aromatizes at about 20%, but it does aromatize to a very weak form of estrogen, so its impact is actually quite low. So why is estrogen elevating, or why are we becoming more sensitive to the estrogen that's there? Now, my theory is that displaced progesterone from the PR receptor due to nandrolone binding with it has an impact on estrogen receptor sensitivity. But I was just looking for some real world evidence. We see this time and time again that what science says. I mean, it's medically, prolactin-based gyno is very, very rare. And in cases of people with naturally high prolactin, it's very, very rare. But those people don't necessarily have high estrogen. Their level of prolactin is governed by the pituitary gland not working correctly. So is it a case of the two have an interaction at the breast and one elevated without the other is fine, which is what I think. So you can have high prolactin as long as you've got low estrogen, you'll be fine. You can have high estrogen as long as you've got low prolactin, you'll be fine to a degree. I also think there's an increase in issues regarding DHT, and I do think DHT plays a massive role with gyno on nandrolones. DHT has a protective nature at the breast, and nandrolones lower DHT in two ways. Obviously, firstly, they don't convert, but secondly, they bind with 5-alpha reductase, and that in turn lower any test that is in the cycle's ability to convert to DHT. I'm trying to get more and more tests done to show more and more results. Now, so the next thing then is, why does prolactin elevate so much with the introduction of an nandrolone? And does it? In the last week, I've looked at 3 sets of results from people I'm working with, all running low base test and DECA, and the results couldn't have been any different. One at a prolactin level in 900s, one at a prolactin level around the 450 mark, one at a prolactin level around the 250 mark, all running similar doses. Now, it was noted that they all run similar AIs, and well, actually, estrogen weren't running AIs. But it was also noted that the one with the low prolactin also had low estrogen, but the one with the very high prolactin still had, it was elevated, but it was still in range, and none of them were displaying any estrogen related signs. So it's a difficult one. What is the interplay? We know that estrogen on its own can raise prolactin. Also, seeing winstrol raising prolactin as well. Now, one theory is that the nandrolones binding at the receptor, progesterone receptor, actually lowers effective progesterone within the body. Now, progesterone is made within the testes, so if they are in shutdown, then there's not going to be a response from the body to produce more progesterone because he can't. It's shut down. So there is a possibility of some manufacturing of a tissue. So I don't know is the honest answer. So is it the lowering of progesterone levels that triggers the elevation of prolactin? But then trend's supposed to bind with the progesterone receptor and stimulate it is at least as equal to progesterone, if not more. So this wouldn't be a lowering of progesterone. DECA would effectively lower progesterone, as would Winstrol. So I don't know, is the honest answer. DECA and Winstrol will cause lower levels of progesterone, the body to sense lower levels of progesterone, but they will also both increase free progesterone. Whereas tren should technically make the body think progesterone is elevated. So there's definitely something going on. There's loads of theories, but we don't. And there's plenty that say that prolactin isn't an issue. Some even claim that prolactin doesn't elevate, and it's just that we don't test prolactin, and it's something we don't test. That if we looked at prolactin levels whilst we were using tests, that we would find that prolactin levels would be elevated there as well. So I'm trying to get as much test results in as I can and see if there is actually a change between someone running test only or test and other compounds in prolactin levels in comparison to test and nandrolones. And we might well find that there's actually not a great deal of difference and that the action isn't down to prolactin, but it's down to something else. But then, if that's the case, then why is CABA so effective at removing gyno issues when taking nandrolones? So is there an interaction between prolactin and estrogen with nandrolone's presence? Well, we know nandrolones lower DHT, so does DHT have a play here? And that's the reason that elevated prolactin or elevated estrogen can both cause gyno if DHT levels are low. So we move DHT, so you remove one of those elements, you can remove the gyno issue. Or does CABA have an effect on DHT? I don't know, is the honest answer. So the reason for the questions were basically to see if people had experienced symptoms, and I know it's a bit ad hoc, but what else do we have to work with? Unfortunately, this is why I want people to test, because the more test results we see, the more information we have, and the more we can learn about what's going on. So as it stands at the moment, I personally think that prolactin actually elevates across a lot of drugs. And I think the issue isn't prolactin, the issue is DHT. And that's why we get gyno, because nandrolones and Winstrol lower DHT. I think elevated prolactin does cause lactation and does cause gyno issues in the right environment, but not directly on its own. Is it that strong to do it if everything else is correct? But I'd like to learn more about the mechanisms and exactly what's going on behind the scenes. So I don't think the lowering of progesterone by nandrolones is that much of an issue. I personally think it's more the reduction of 5-alpha reductase and the lowering of DHT. Having said that, there is a massive movement at the moment for the nandrolone only cycles, and they don't seem to be having issues, but there's no aromatizing going on in there, or very little, so the estrogen wouldn't be elevated enough to have an interplay anyway. So you could just say, well, control estrogen. Well, yeah, we can, and that may be a very effective solution. But if there is an action of free-floating progesterone increasing estrogen receptor sensitivity, it's not going to be the easiest thing to manage, because we all know that estrogen is essential for good health. It helps protect cholesterol levels, and it's very, very influential in growth. So if estrogen levels are too low, we're going to restrict growth, and we're going to put greater risk at cholesterol mismanagement and problems there. So the other thing is also that the lack of DHT has massive impact on neurochemicals within the brain, which is why test has a neuroprotective element, which is why I've always said run test with nandrolones, not particularly for anything other than that neuroprotective quality. And it doesn't have to be a high dose, but just some tests. 250 mg is plenty. In fact, I put a lot of clients on 250 to 500 mg a test and then high nandrolone. So unfortunately, the nandrolone only people, or some of the nandrolone only people, are a little bit shady in what they're sharing. Having got into a conversation with one recently, he couldn't support his argument in any way, shape, or form with anything factual. And then when I showed him some studies that went against part of his argument, which was desensitization, he came out with all sorts of bullshit and rubbish and excuses. And it was just crap. It was just a case of throwing mud to try and discredit something because he didn't have an argument around it. You might as well start calling me fat and telling me my mum's ugly. You know, it would have been about as logical as what his argument was. So I'm a bit skeptical about some of the information coming from that era, because some of the promoters of that style of drug use, I don't think are particularly ethical. But, you know, Robbie Robson, someone put a video up on the last thread about Robbie Robson, and he says he just ran nandrolones and nothing else. Ran Deca, ran low dose, and it doesn't seem to have done him particular harm. And Robbie's still in very good health and he's a great age now. So there's definitely something there, but I think the key with Robbie was it was low dose. Also, that Robbie had an excellent physique, phenomenal physique. He was never a mass monster. And he said, I don't think he ever got over 203 or 205 pounds or something. So that would, but then I don't think he ever wanted to either. So I don't think we can use that as evidence. Yes, are nandrolone cycles particularly damaging only? I don't know. I honestly don't know. I'm not sure, without seeing tests and evidence of exactly what's going on with the body with regards to DHT and brain chemistry, etc., whether long term they are safe or not. Personally, I'd err on the side of caution and just run a low base of test, but I don't think you need a high base of test with an nandrolone. So there you go. This is where I'm going. Not really, because it's probably going to not think it's actually going to change much in the way we do things. I think with certain people, you could show them it in black and white and stacked up to the eyeballs, and they still do what they did because in their head it's right. So it's more just my curiosity. I just want to know how it works. I find it better when you're dealing with. I've got to remember that most of the things I deal with is problems, and the more I can understand what mechanisms interplay with each other, then the more I can look at what potentially is going on in that problem. I'm waiting to have a conversation with a very learned gentleman, a gentleman by the name of Anders Fabregas Nedergaard, a Dutch guy. I actually interviewed him he interviewed me as well in UC2. Very, very clever man. And I've sent him what I want to discuss with him, and he's going to do some digging, and hopefully we're going to get together shortly and have a chat. So it'll be interesting in what he thinks of the whole situation. But to sum up, gyno-related issues with nandrolones, I feel, are more DHT related. Estrogen plays a major role, and so does prolactin. But I don't think either of them would have the same effect if DHT was at a higher level. There does appear to be an increase in estrogen sensitivity with nandrolones, and anecdotal evidence from users does support that does back it up. And I've got a suspicion that prolactin levels will be a lot more elevated than we realise across a lot of the drugs we use. So I'm going to start doing a lot more prolactin testing and see where those levels are. Obviously, it's important to manage estrogen. No, I say manage estrogen and not just keep it low. But it may be an issue where estrogen management on nandrolones becomes a little bit more finite because levels may be with reasonable, but effects may be hypersensitive. What causes prolactin to elevate in the first place, I think, is pretty much anabolics. However, CABA is effective when we see gyno and such symptoms introduced by prolactin. And so I'm not sure on that area of mechanisms and what's going on there. And that's something I want to try and get to the bottom of. Because CABA is not the safest drug. So I don't think it's something we now, it used to be very hard to get hold of. It's now a little bit easier and it's growing in popularity. But I'd like to learn more about what it's doing and how it's doing it with regards to its effects. And we won't know that till we understand what mechanism is actually causing the symptoms. We know the culprits, we just don't quite know how. So there you go. Okay, so that was the reasons for the questions. I'm about to go up to Hartlepool to see a client, and then I'm out all day tomorrow. But I'll be back on Thursday, so I'll try and think of something useless and fucking bollocks to moan and chunt on about on Thursday. Have fun, take care, and I'll catch you guys soon.